Have you ever replayed the same conversation over and over again in your mind, wondering if you said the wrong thing, if someone misunderstood you, or if one small mistake changed everything? Maybe you've stayed awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, staring at the ceiling while your mind refuses to rest. You imagine every possible outcome, every possible failure, every worst-case scenario. And no matter how hard you try, you simply can't stop thinking. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Millions of people struggle with overthinking every single day. The strange part is that overthinking often disguises itself as problem solving. It convinces you that if you think just a little longer, you'll finally find the perfect answer. But psychology tells us something surprising. Most overthinking doesn't solve problems. It creates them. Instead of bringing clarity, it creates confusion. Instead of preparing you for the future, it steals your present. Instead of protecting you from failure, it often keeps you from taking action at all. Today, we're going to explore why your brain gets trapped in endless thought loops, why intelligent people often overthink more than others, and most importantly, how understanding your mind is the first step toward breaking free. Because sometimes, the biggest prison isn't around you. It's inside your own mind. Your brain was designed to protect you. To understand overthinking, we first need to understand the brain. Thousands of years ago, life was dangerous. Our ancestors faced predators, harsh weather, food shortages, and constant uncertainty. The people who survived weren't always the strongest. They were often the ones who anticipated danger before it arrived. Their brains constantly asked questions. What if something attacks? What if this food is poisonous? What if I make the wrong decision? That habit of imagining possible threats helped humans survive. Your brain still uses that same survival system today. The difference is that modern threats usually aren't lions or wild animals. Instead, they're emails, job interviews, relationships, money, social media, and the opinions of other people. The survival system remained the same. Only the dangers changed. Your brain still believes thinking more equals staying safer. But that's not always true. The illusion of control. One of the biggest reasons people overthink is because they desperately want certainty. Imagine waiting for an important phone call. Perhaps you're applying for your dream job, or waiting for medical test results, or wondering whether someone will text you back. There's nothing you can do except wait. But waiting feels uncomfortable. So your mind begins working overtime. Maybe they don't like me. Maybe I failed. Maybe something terrible happened. Maybe I should have said something different. Notice what's happening. Your brain mistakes thinking for control. It believes that if it keeps analyzing every possibility, you'll somehow influence the outcome. But reality doesn't work that way. Thinking about tomorrow doesn't change tomorrow. It only changes today. Psychologists often describe this as the illusion of control. The mind creates endless mental activity because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. Ironically, the more you chase certainty, the more anxious you become. Why intelligent people often overthink more. Here's something fascinating. Research suggests that people who think deeply often overthink more frequently. Why? Because they're skilled at imagining possibilities. A creative mind doesn't only imagine success. It also imagines failure, embarrassment, rejection, loss, every possible future. Imagine standing at the edge of a river. Most people see water. An overthinker sees 100 different scenarios. What if I fall? What if the bridge breaks? What if people are watching me? What if something goes wrong? Intelligence gives the brain more information to analyze. But without emotional balance, That information becomes overwhelming. Thinking becomes looping. Reflection becomes rumination. Curiosity becomes fear. The problem isn't intelligence. It's direction. A powerful mind without control can become its own worst enemy. The difference between thinking and overthinking. Thinking helps you solve problems. Overthinking keeps you trapped inside them. Imagine you have an important presentation tomorrow. Healthy thinking sounds like this. I'll prepare my notes tonight. I'll practice twice. I'll get enough sleep. Problem solved. Now, listen to overthinking. What if I forget everything? What if everyone laughs? What if I embarrass myself? What if I lose my job? What if I never recover? Notice the difference. Healthy thinking leads to action. Overthinking leads to paralysis. One moves forward, the other runs in circles. Many people confuse preparation with worry, but they're completely different. Preparation ends. Overthinking never does. Why your mind replays the past. Have you ever remembered something embarrassing from years ago, only to feel uncomfortable all over again? Perhaps you said something awkward, made a mistake, lost an opportunity. Your body reacts as though it's happening today. This happens because your brain doesn't clearly distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. When you repeatedly replay painful memories, your nervous system activates similar emotional responses. Your heart rate increases. Stress hormones rise. Muscles become tense. Even though you're perfectly safe sitting at home, the past continues living inside your present because your mind refuses to let it go. Psychologists call this rumination. Rumination isn't learning from mistakes. It's repeatedly reopening emotional wounds without allowing them to heal. Learning asks, what can I improve? Rumination asks, why am I like this? One creates growth. The other creates suffering. The trap of perfectionism. Many overthinkers aren't simply worried. They're perfectionists. They believe every decision must be perfect. Every conversation must be flawless. Every opportunity must be handled perfectly. But perfection doesn't exist. Imagine an artist who never finishes a painting because it could always be slightly better. Or a writer who never publishes a book because one more edit feels necessary. Eventually, perfection becomes procrastination wearing a different mask. The fear of making mistakes becomes stronger than the desire to move forward. Psychology teaches us something incredibly important. Progress creates confidence. Perfection creates hesitation. The people who succeed aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones willing to act despite uncertainty. Why overthinking feels addictive. Here's the most surprising part. Overthinking can actually become a habit. Every time your brain worries, analyzes, or predicts danger, it believes it's helping you. The mind rewards itself by saying, I'm being responsible. I am preparing. I'm staying safe. But in reality, nothing changes, except your stress level. The more often your brain uses overthinking as its solution, the stronger that mental pathway becomes. Eventually, worrying becomes automatic. You don't choose to overthink. Your brain simply repeats the pattern it has practiced hundreds of times before. Fortunately, anything the brain learns, the brain can also unlearn. The greatest danger of overthinking isn't that it makes you think too much. It's that it prevents you from living. While you're imagining life, life quietly continues moving forward. In the next chapter, we'll discover how overthinking quietly destroys confidence, increases anxiety, and creates a cycle of fear that becomes harder to escape with each passing day. We'll also explore why your mind always seems to expect the worst, even when nothing bad has happened. Because once you understand why your brain behaves this way, you'll finally begin learning how to take your life back. Every what if steals a little confidence. Imagine you're about to apply for your dream job. You open the application. Your resume is ready. You've researched the company. Everything is prepared. Then your mind whispers, what if I'm not qualified enough? What if someone else is better? What if I embarrass myself during the interview? Maybe I should wait until I'm more prepared. So you close your laptop, not because you weren't capable, but because your mind convinced you that waiting felt safer than trying. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Eventually, someone else gets the opportunity you were afraid to pursue. This is one of the cruelest tricks overthinking plays. It doesn't usually stop you with force. It stops you with doubt. Fear pretends to be logic. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing every thought they have. But your thoughts are not always facts. Sometimes they're simply fear wearing the mask of logic. Imagine walking alone at night. You hear footsteps behind you. Instantly, your heart begins to race. Your brain creates a story. Someone is following me. I'm in danger. A few moments later, you turn around. It's just another person walking home. The danger never existed. Only the story did. Your brain constantly creates stories to protect you. Sometimes they're accurate. Often they're not. Overthinking happens when we mistake every imagined story for reality. Instead of asking, is this true? We immediately ask, how do I prepare for it? The mind starts solving problems that don't even exist. Analysis paralysis. Have you ever spent so much time thinking about a decision that you never made one? Psychologists call this analysis paralysis. The more options we have, the harder choosing becomes. Imagine you're buying a new phone. There are 20 models, hundreds of reviews, thousands of opinions online. Instead of helping you decide, too much information makes the decision harder. The same thing happens in life. Choosing a career, starting a business, ending a relationship, moving to another city. Every possible choice creates another possible future. The brain keeps comparing them, searching for certainty, searching for the perfect answer. But life rarely offers perfect answers. Sometimes, the only way to know whether something is right is to begin. Your brain loves worst-case scenarios. Here's something fascinating. Your brain naturally gives more attention to negative possibilities than positive ones. This is called the negativity bias. Imagine reading 100 comments about your work. 99 are positive. One is negative. Which one stays in your mind? Usually, the negative one. Not because you're weak, but because your brain evolved to notice danger before comfort. Thousands of years ago, ignoring one dangerous animal could mean death. Ignoring one beautiful sunset had no consequence. Your brain still follows those ancient rules today. It automatically scans for problems, threats, mistakes, embarrassment, failure. This is why overthinking often feels believable. Your brain isn't trying to make you miserable. It's trying to protect you. The problem is that it can't always distinguish between a real threat and an imagined one. The prison of perfection. Many overthinkers secretly believe one dangerous idea. If I think long enough, I'll make the perfect decision. But perfection is an illusion. Imagine a writer who spends 10 years editing the same book. Each chapter becomes slightly better, but the book is never published. Now imagine another writer. They finish, they publish, they learn, they improve with every new project. Who grows faster? The second writer, because action teaches lessons that thinking never can. Perfection feels productive, but most of the time, It's simply fear hiding behind high standards. Successful people aren't fearless. They're willing to make imperfect decisions. How overthinking damages relationships. Overthinking doesn't only affect your goals. It affects your relationships too. Imagine your friend doesn't reply to your message. 5 minutes pass. Nothing. An hour passes. Still nothing. Suddenly your mind begins creating explanations. They're angry. I said something wrong. Maybe they don't want to be my friend anymore. Hours later, they finally reply. I've been in meetings all day. Nothing was wrong, but your mind spent hours suffering over a story that never existed. This happens in romantic relationships too. A simple facial expression becomes, they're losing interest. A short text becomes, something must be wrong. Silence becomes rejection. Overthinking transforms ordinary moments into emotional storms. Not because reality changed, because interpretation changed. Your comfort zone is quietly shrinking. Every time fear convinces you to avoid something, your comfort zone becomes slightly smaller. Imagine someone afraid of speaking in public. They avoid presentations. Soon they avoid meetings. Later they avoid networking events. Eventually they avoid opportunities altogether. Each avoidance brings temporary relief, but long-term anxiety becomes stronger. Psychologists call this the avoidance cycle. Avoidance feels safe today, but it creates greater fear tomorrow. The only way to shrink fear is to walk toward it, slowly, patiently, one small step at a time. You don't need more answers. Many overthinkers believe they need more information, more certainty, more preparation. But what they often need is more trust. Trust that they'll handle problems if they appear. Trust that mistakes don't define them. Trust that uncertainty is a normal part of life. You don't have to know every step before beginning the journey. You only need enough courage to take the first one. Overthinking convinces you that staying still is safer than moving forward. But life doesn't reward perfect thinking. It rewards meaningful action. In the next chapter, we'll uncover the hidden costs of overthinking, how it steals your sleep, drains your energy, weakens your relationships, and keeps you trapped in memories of the past. Most importantly, you'll discover why letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about finally giving yourself permission to live. How overthinking steals your life one thought at a time. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack every single day. At first, you barely notice the weight. But as weeks become months, and months become years, your shoulders begin to ache. Your energy slowly disappears. Simple tasks become exhausting. Overthinking works in exactly the same way. It doesn't usually destroy your life overnight. Instead, it quietly steals your peace. One thought at a time. One sleepless night at a time. One missed opportunity at a time. By the time you realize how much it's taken from you, you've already spent years living inside your own head instead of living your life. And perhaps that's the greatest tragedy of all. Your brain was never meant to run all day. Think about your smartphone. If dozens of apps are running in the background, the battery drains quickly. The phone becomes slower, hotter, less efficient. Your brain works in a similar way. Every unfinished thought, every imagined argument, every possible future consumes mental energy. Even when you're sitting quietly, your brain may be working harder than someone running a marathon. This is why overthinkers often say, "I'm exhausted even though I haven't done anything today." The exhaustion isn't physical. It's mental. Psychologists sometimes call this cognitive overload. Your brain has limited attention. When most of that attention is spent worrying, there's very little left for creativity, learning, relationships, or happiness? Why overthinking keeps you awake at night? Have you ever noticed that your biggest worries often appear just before you fall asleep? The room is quiet. The lights are off. There's nothing demanding your attention. Suddenly, your mind begins replaying conversations from years ago. It reminds you of embarrassing moments. It invents tomorrow's problems. It asks questions with no answers. What if I fail? What if something goes wrong? What if I'm not good enough? Sleep disappears. The body becomes tense. The heart beats faster. But here's what's happening inside your brain. When you repeatedly think about stressful situations, your nervous system struggles to distinguish imagination from reality. Stress hormones begin increasing. Your body prepares for danger, even though you're lying safely in bed. The result? You wake up tired, not because you didn't sleep enough, but because your brain never truly rested. The cost of living in the past. One of the most painful habits of overthinkers is replaying old mistakes. Maybe you remember an awkward conversation from high school, a relationship that ended badly, a business opportunity you didn't take, a chance you let slip away. Years pass, yet your mind keeps returning to the same memory. You ask yourself, what if I had said something different? What if I had tried harder? What if I had made another choice? But here's the truth. The past cannot be edited. No amount of thinking changes what already happened. Yet every time you replay those memories, you're asking today's version of yourself to suffer for yesterday's version. Learning from the past is healthy. Living inside the past is not. Growth asks, what can I do differently next time? Overthinking asks, why wasn't I perfect? One creates wisdom. The other creates regret. The future doesn't exist yet. If the past traps many overthinkers, the future traps the rest. Imagine standing before a bridge. Instead of crossing it, you spend hours imagining everything that could happen. Maybe the bridge collapses. Maybe you fall. Maybe people laugh. Maybe you fail. Meanwhile, someone else simply starts walking. By the time you've imagined 100 disasters, they're already on the other side. This is how overthinking steals opportunity. While you're preparing for every possible future, life quietly rewards those willing to begin before they feel completely ready. The future has never belonged to the person who thought the longest. It belongs to the person who eventually took the first step. Overthinking weakens relationships. Imagine your best friend doesn't answer your message. An hour passes, then another. Your imagination immediately begins creating stories. They're upset with me. Maybe I offended them. Perhaps our friendship is over. Hours later, they reply, my phone battery died. Nothing was wrong, except the story your mind invented. Overthinking often damages relationships, not because of reality, but because of assumptions. You begin interpreting silence as rejection, distance as dislike, a short reply as anger. Gradually, you react to imaginary problems instead of real ones. Healthy relationships depend on communication. Overthinking replaces communication with speculation, and speculation rarely tells the truth. Decision fatigue. Here's another hidden cost. Every decision uses mental energy. What should I wear? Should I reply now? Should I accept the offer? Should I wait? Should I leave? Should I stay? Now imagine questioning every single decision. Even the smallest choices become exhausting. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. The more decisions you overanalyze, the more mentally tired you become. Ironically, the tired brain begins making worse decisions. Not because it's less intelligent, because it's overwhelmed. This is why successful people often simplify small choices. They save their mental energy for what truly matters. Life happens outside your thoughts. Here's something many overthinkers don't realize. While you're imagining life, life is happening without you. Your family is making memories. Friends are laughing together. Sunsets are disappearing. Opportunities are arriving and leaving because your attention is somewhere else, inside your own mind. The present moment is the only place life actually exists. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, right here, right now. Yet overthinking convinces you to sacrifice today's peace for tomorrow's uncertainty. And tomorrow never arrives. When tomorrow comes, it becomes another today, followed by another tomorrow. The cycle continues until you decide to break it. The turning point. Every overthinker eventually reaches a moment of realization. They understand something simple, but life-changing. Not every thought deserves attention. Just because your mind says something doesn't mean you must believe it. Thoughts are visitors, not commands. Some deserve listening. Others deserve letting go. The goal isn't to stop thinking. The goal is to stop believing every thought that enters your mind. That single realization changes everything. Overthinking has taken enough from you. Enough sleep, enough confidence, enough opportunities, enough peace. But here's the encouraging truth. The same brain that learned to overthink can learn a new way of living. In the final chapter, we'll explore powerful, science-backed techniques to quiet the mind, overcome anxiety, and finally experience the freedom that comes from living in the present instead of living inside endless thoughts. Because peace isn't found by thinking more. Sometimes, peace begins the moment you decide to think differently. Lesson 2. Separate thoughts from reality. Imagine you're sitting beside a quiet river. Leaves float gently across the water. Now imagine that every leaf represents one of your thoughts. Some are positive, some are negative, some are completely irrational. You don't have to jump into the river and chase every leaf. You simply watch them pass. This is how healthy thinking works. A thought is not automatically a fact. Just because your mind says, "I'm going to fail," doesn't mean failure is certain. Instead of asking, "Is this thought true?" try asking, "Is there real evidence for this?" Often, you'll discover that your fear is based on imagination, not reality. This simple shift creates distance between you and your thoughts. And in that distance, you regain freedom. Lesson 3. Take small actions. Overthinking grows in stillness. Action weakens it. Imagine standing at the bottom of a mountain. If you focus on reaching the top, the climb feels impossible. But if you focus only on taking the next step, suddenly the journey becomes manageable. The same principle applies to life. Want to write a book? Write one page. Afraid of public speaking? Speak to one small group. Thinking about changing careers? Update your resume today. Small actions build momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence silences fear. Remember, action doesn't eliminate anxiety immediately. It teaches your brain that anxiety doesn't have to control your decisions. Lesson 4. Practice being present. Your mind lives in two places that don't exist: the past and the future. But your life exists only in the present moment. Right now, take a slow breath. Notice the sound around you, the feeling of the chair beneath you, the rhythm of your breathing. For a few seconds, your mind leaves its endless stories and returns to reality. This practice is called mindfulness. It doesn't require emptying your mind. It simply means paying attention to what's happening now. The more you practice being present, the less power your worries have over you. Because anxiety cannot survive for long when your attention is fully rooted in the present. Lesson 5. Stop chasing perfection. Many overthinkers secretly believe that mistakes are unacceptable. But think about how children learn to walk. They fall again and again. No one expects perfection. Failure is part of learning. Somehow, as adults, we forget this lesson. We begin expecting ourselves to get everything right the first time. But perfection is not the goal. Progress is. Every successful person you admire has made mistakes. The difference is that they treated mistakes as teachers, not as proof that they weren't good enough. When you give yourself permission to be imperfect, you also give yourself permission to grow. Lesson 6. Protect your mental environment. Your thoughts are shaped by what you consume. Imagine filling your mind every day with negative news, endless comparisons on social media, and constant criticism. Your brain begins to expect danger everywhere. Now imagine spending more time reading books, exercising, walking in nature, talking with supportive friends, and learning new skills. Your mental environment changes. And gradually, so does your thinking. Your mind grows where your attention goes. Choose carefully what you feed it, because every habit becomes part of your inner voice. Lesson 7. Trust yourself more. Perhaps the deepest cause of overthinking is not uncertainty. It's self-doubt. Overthinkers often believe they won't be able to handle future problems, so they try to solve everything in advance. But look at your life. You've survived difficult days before. Disappointments, failures, heartbreak, stress, loss. At the time, you probably believed you wouldn't make it through. Yet here you are, stronger than you once thought possible. This doesn't mean life will always be easy. It means you've already proven that you're more resilient than your fears suggest. Trust that version of yourself, the one who has survived every challenge up to this moment. The final truth. Imagine reaching the end of your life, looking back at all the moments you spent worrying. How many of those fears actually happened? Probably far fewer than you imagined. And even when difficult things did happen, you found a way through them. That's the irony of overthinking. It promises protection, but often steals the very life it's trying to protect. Life is not meant to be perfectly predicted. It's meant to be experienced. You'll never think your way into complete certainty, but you can live your way into confidence. Confidence is built one action, one choice, one brave step at a time. If there's one lesson to remember from this journey, let it be this. Your thoughts are powerful, but they are not your master. You have the ability to pause, to question your fears, to choose action over endless analysis, and to return your attention to the only moment that truly exists. This one. So the next time your mind begins creating another endless loop of what if, take a deep breath, smile, and remind yourself, you don't have to solve your entire future today. You only have to live this moment well. Thank you for watching Mind Harbor. If this video helped you better understand your mind, consider subscribing for more content on psychology, emotional intelligence, human behavior, and personal growth. Until next time, remember, understand your mind, transform your life, because a peaceful mind isn't the one that thinks the most. It's the one that knows when to let go.